What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Tuesday, March 11th, 2025, and I have an emergency alert to share with you guys. Right now it is 16:25 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from Eastern Europe. So last night, Ukraine launched the largest drone attack on Russia and Moscow since the beginning of the war in Ukraine. Russia says they shot down 337 Ukrainian drones overnight in 10 regions of Russia, including but not limited to Moscow, Kursk, Bryansk, Belgorod, and Ryazan. 91 drones were shot down over Moscow. Multiple airports were closed. Flights were diverted. Apparently, Ukraine damaged a major rail hub in Moscow at the Domodedovo train station. Some tracks were destroyed there by the drones. Also, an oil refinery in the Oryol region was hit with a drone, and also an oil depot in Moscow. Russia is saying that the death toll from this drone attack in just the Moscow region alone is now up to 3 dead and 20 wounded. So an absolutely massive drone attack on Russia, the largest since the beginning of the war. And right now we have the US, Ukraine, and Russia in Saudi Arabia discussing the peace deal. And it's very interesting that Ukraine would launch this massive attack literally hours before the Ukrainian delegation was set to meet with the U.S. delegation, and I have an update on that. It looks like the U.S. is going to restart intelligence and military aid to Ukraine, and Ukraine agreed on a 30-day total ceasefire. And so now the U.S. delegation is going to meet with the Russian delegation and pitch that idea to them and see if Russia would accept that. Russia has already said that they're not going to accept any kind of a ceasefire without a lasting peace deal that addresses the fundamental issues with the war. Okay, so we'll have to wait and see what Russia does, but Ukraine has agreed to a 30-day ceasefire, and tomorrow the U.S. delegation will meet with the Russian delegation, and later this week, Steve Witkoff, the special envoy to the Middle East for the Trump administration, will be going to Moscow to speak with Putin directly, okay? And right now we have U.S. nuclear forces on very high alert. We have a nuclear war command and control plane up in the air. We have a nuke sniffer up in the air. We have 2 B-52 nuclear bombers up in the air. And we also have a sub-hunter off the coast of Florida, just north of the Bahamas. So something is brewing, guys. Last night, after this massive drone attack, probably about half a dozen Russian doomsday planes left Moscow and went to Siberia. So it appears that the Russian leadership, the Russian VIPs, have been evacuated from Moscow in anticipation for some kind of a massive retaliation strike on Ukraine in response to this huge drone attack. And in the Russian parliament, the head of the defense committee urged Putin to respond to the drone attacks with multiple Oreshnik strikes. He said the decision is up to the Supreme Commander-in-Chief, but I think it would be useful to launch Oreshnik, preferably more than one. Okay, so the head of the defense committee in the Russian parliament, his name is Kartopolov, calling on Putin to launch multiple Oreshniks at Ukraine. And we're hearing that as many as 5 warships and submarines that are capable of carrying cruise missiles are now in position in the Black Sea. And also last night, Russia launched 150 drones at Ukraine. And Ukraine's Air Force said they shot down 1 ballistic missile and 79 drones launched by Russia overnight. So it's not like Russia's totally innocent. They launched over 150 drones last night, and Ukraine launched 337, which is just a massive amount, okay? And we know that Russia has repositioned 5 Tu-22 backfire bombers from Olenia Air Base in preparation for a massive strike on Ukraine. So something could go down tonight. I will be monitoring the situation tonight. I have a very bad feeling that there's going to be some kind of massive retaliation strike by Russia. Okay, all those doomsday planes going east to Siberia, I have not seen that for a long time. Okay, and here we have a picture showing the aftermath of the drone attack on Moscow last night. You can see this huge plume of smoke here. Here you can see some apartment building that was hit by a drone. You can see this big hole here in the side of the building. And then here's another hole in this apartment building. And a lot of people were wondering last night in the chat why Ukraine would be targeting all these residential buildings. And my theory is, number one, they were going after VIPs. And number two, the GPS jamming that Russia probably turned on could have scrambled the guidance systems of these drones, causing them to crash into these buildings. Okay, here's another building that was hit. And then here's all the Russian doomsday planes that went east to Siberia earlier this morning after the drone attack. Okay, so Russia has relocated their VIPs and they're positioning their forces to retaliate, possibly with multiple Oreshniks. Last night, after this massive drone attack, we also had 2 U.S. nuclear bombers fly all the way up to northern Sweden and do some kind of exercise up there. They were doing loops up here. Last week, they flew to Finland and they did a live fire exercise with Finland. They dropped some bombs in a test range in Finland. They were escorted by Finnish F-18s. So the U.S. is clearly making its presence known here, despite what Trump has said that they're not going to be exercising with NATO anymore. It seems like Trump likes to scare everybody with his talk, but if you look at the actions, it doesn't appear that the U.S. has really changed their force posture a whole lot in Europe. The one thing I have noticed is less U.S. reconnaissance flights in the Baltics and in Eastern Europe. And the U.S. has agreed to immediately lift the pause on military aid and intelligence sharing to Ukraine following talks in Saudi Arabia. The U.S. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz said today, "I will reach out to the Russians on the Ukrainian truce proposal." Rubio said, "We seek peace in Ukraine as a priority and will discuss the minerals agreement as well." He said the minerals agreement with Ukraine is very important and we expect to reach a final formula for the agreement. He also said, "We hope the Russian response will be positive." And Trump said that he would invite Zelensky back to the White House. So that would be something good if we could see Trump and Zelensky smile and shake hands in front of the world. I think that would really piss off Putin and all of our enemies overseas, including China, Iran, North Korea. What they want to see is us battling with Europe and battling with our allies. They don't want to see us close with them. So I think that would be good. And Trump confirmed today in a short press conference that Ukraine agreed to a ceasefire. Now hopefully Putin will also agree. He said, "We will meet with Russia today or tomorrow." He also mentioned that a full ceasefire could come in the next few days. He stressed if we don't force Russia to stop, we'll just keep fighting. So interesting change of words there by Trump. He said if we don't force Russia to stop, we'll just keep fighting. So typical Trump behavior. You know, one day he says one thing, the next day he says another. That's just his personality. So we'll have to wait and see what happens, but it does appear, at least initially, that this could be a step in the right direction, that Ukraine is getting their intelligence back, they're getting the equipment back, and they've agreed to a ceasefire, and now Trump is going to put the ball in Russia's court. So if the ceasefire fails, at least Trump can say, hey, the U.S. tried, we tried our best, we asked for a ceasefire. And Zelensky posted on Twitter today, I received a report from our delegation on their meeting with the American team in Saudi Arabia. The discussion lasted most of the day and was good and constructive. Our teams were able to discuss many important details. Our position remains absolutely clear. Ukraine has been seeking peace from the very first second of this war, and we want to do everything possible to achieve it as soon as possible and in a reliable way so that the war does not return. At this meeting with the Americans, Ukraine proposed 3 key points: silence in the skies, stopping missile strikes and bombs and long-range drone attacks, silence at sea, real confidence-building measures in this whole situation in which diplomacy is ongoing, which primarily means the release of prisoners of war and detainees, both military and civilian, and the return of Ukrainian children who were forcibly transferred to Russia. In case you guys are not aware, Russia kidnapped 50,000 Ukrainian kids that basically their parents died from the invasion. They were homeless, they had no parents, and Russia brought them into their country and has basically been brainwashing these Ukrainian kids and converting them into Russians, trying to teach them the Russian language and forcing the Russian culture on them so they forget who they are, forget that they're Ukrainian. And the American side understands our arguments and considers our proposals. I am grateful to President Trump for the constructive conversation between our teams. During today's talks, the U.S. side proposed taking an even bigger first step, a 30-day full interim ceasefire, not only stopping missile, drone, and bomb attacks, not only in the Black Sea, but also along the entire front line. Ukraine is ready to accept this proposal. We see it as a positive step, and we are ready to take it. Now it is up to the U.S. to convince Russia to do the same. If Russia agrees, the ceasefire will take effect immediately. So we're in uncharted territory. It's going to be very interesting to see what Russia will do now. The ball is in Russia's court. And the head of the office of the president of Ukraine, Andriy Yermak, he's one of the guys that was on the Ukrainian side meeting with Rubio and Mike Waltz today. He said today in Saudi Arabia, Ukraine and the U.S. discussed steps to restore peace in Ukraine. The Ukrainian delegation once again expressed deep gratitude on behalf of the Ukrainian people to President Trump, the U.S. Congress, and the people of the United States. Ukraine has expressed its readiness to accept the U.S. proposal for an immediate temporary 30-day ceasefire, which may be extended by mutual consent of the parties, subject to acceptance and simultaneous implementation by the Russian Federation. The U.S. will make it clear to Russia that reciprocity from Russia is key to achieving peace. The U.S. is immediately lifting the pause in intelligence sharing and restoring security assistance to Ukraine. So the U.S. is kind of siding with Ukraine on this one. It's going to be interesting to see what Russia does. Okay, will Putin accept or will he reject? And then how is Trump going to take that? If Putin rejects and he says no, because they've already said they would not agree to any kind of a ceasefire because they are afraid that it's going to give Ukraine time to recoup. And they don't want that. They want to keep the pressure on Ukraine. They also want to extend the front lines deeper into Ukraine. They want to take more land, okay? They want to push the front line further into the Donbass, deeper into central Ukraine so they can fully take the Donbass. Russia has not fully conquered the Donbass yet, okay? There's still parts of the front line that are literally just 10 or 20 miles from Donetsk, okay? So Russia wants to take more of the Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts, okay? And oil supplies from Russia to Hungary have been suspended due to an attack by a Ukrainian drone on a measuring station of the Druzhba pipeline last night, according to the Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó. And Kaja Kallas, the EU president, said the Ukraine war could end immediately if Russia withdraws troops and stops bombing Ukraine. We must all focus our efforts on achieving a just and lasting peace in Ukraine. And the OSCE Secretary General said they are ready to support efforts to end the war in Ukraine. The Kremlin said today that many are now rushing to put on rose-colored glasses about U.S. actions, but we must always be ready to defend our interests. So very interesting. The Kremlin is skeptical of the U.S. pro-Russia slant in recent weeks. They probably think it's a big show. And the Russian Ministry of Defense claimed control over 12 settlements in the Kursk region of Russia. And the U.S. was not invited to a NATO summit on Ukraine in Paris today. 30 countries were invited, but the U.S. was not. And then here we have some private reconnaissance that was going on in the Baltics and Poland and Romania last night. And I want to switch gears and talk about the situation with tariffs and Canada. So the situation with Canada is escalating. We have the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, threatening to completely cut off electricity to the U.S., and he made a statement last night saying that they're going to add a 25% surcharge on electricity exported from Ontario to Minnesota, Michigan, and New York. And he said that if the U.S. continues to escalate, he will completely shut down the electricity supplies to the U.S., okay? This is very, very serious. If you think back to 2003, there was the Great Northeast Blackout. I actually remember that. I was working at a supermarket at the time. I was on summer break from college, and I remember the whole supermarket went black, and everything outside went black. Everything went dark, and that was because of an electrical fault in Canada, in Quebec, and it caused a massive power outage in Quebec, Ontario, all of New England, and New York. Okay, so Ontario's power, Canada's power is interconnected with the U.S., so this could be devastating, and Trump responded to this threat earlier today. I'm going to read to you what Trump wrote, okay, but first, I want to play this video of the Ontario Premier threatening to shut off electricity to the U.S. Trump declared a national emergency on electricity already, so that means he's expecting something.
Ontario will keep up the fight. We will apply maximum pressure to maximize our leverage. That's why today we're moving forward with a 25% surcharge on electricity exports. For the 1.5 million American homes and businesses that Ontario powers, homes and businesses in Minnesota, Michigan, and New York. This surcharge will cost families and businesses in these states up to $400,000 each and every single day. On an average, this will add around $100 per month to the bills of hardworking Americans. Let me be clear. I will not hesitate to increase this charge. If necessary, if the United States escalates, I will not hesitate to shut the electricity off completely.
Wow. So he's saying it's going to cost Americans an extra $100 a month on their electricity bills and $400,000 per day in damage to the economy. But here he says he will not hesitate to shut off the power completely.
I will not hesitate to increase this charge. If necessary, if the United States escalates, I will not hesitate to shut the electricity off completely. Increase this charge. If necessary, if the United States escalates, I will not hesitate to shut the electricity off completely.
So absolutely huge news, and let me read to you what Trump posted last night in response to this. He wrote this huge post here on his Truth Social account. He said, based on Ontario, Canada placing a 25% tariff on electricity coming into the U.S., I have instructed the Secretary of Commerce to add an additional 25 to 50% tariff on all steel and aluminum coming into the U.S. from Canada, one of the highest tariffing nations anywhere in the world. This will go into effect tomorrow morning, March the 12th. Also, Canada must immediately drop their anti-American farmer tariff of 250 to 390% on various U.S. dairy products, which has long been considered outrageous. I will shortly be declaring a national emergency on electricity within the threatened area. This will allow the U.S. to quickly do what has to be done to alleviate this abusive threat from Canada. If other egregious long-time tariffs are not likewise dropped by Canada, I will substantially increase on April 2nd the tariffs on cars coming into the U.S., which will essentially permanently shut down the automobile manufacturing business in Canada. Those cars can easily be made in the U.S. Also, Canada pays very little for national security, relying on the U.S. for military protection. So, really, really crazy situation here. Some of the things Trump said is actually not true. There is no 250 to 390% tariff on U.S. dairy. That's what Canada was threatening to do if Trump escalated. Okay, but they don't have that in place right now. But this is absolutely huge news. Trump declaring a national emergency in the threatened areas: New York, Michigan, Minnesota, parts of the Northeast and Midwest. And he's going to place an additional 25 to 50% tariff on all steel and aluminum coming into the U.S. from Canada. And then he's going to put a massive tariff on cars coming in from Canada. So this is really, really crazy news. And the UN Security Council will meet behind closed doors on Wednesday to discuss Iran's expansion of its stockpile of uranium close to weapons grade. And around 100 cubic meters of radioactive coolant leaked from Finland's Olkiluoto 3 nuclear reactor, the largest in Europe, operator TVO said on Monday, adding that the incident posed no safety risk. The leakage struck on Friday during the reactor's annual outage for maintenance in connection with the filling of the reactor pool. TVO said in a statement, the coolant flowed into containment rooms closed to the environment and into the floor drain system of the containment. The incident did not pose any risk to the personnel, the environment, or nuclear safety. And Israeli forces confirmed that they will begin work to establish a buffer zone in Syria extending to Iraq. And on March 10th, Israeli warplanes carried out multiple airstrikes in the southern Syria governance of Daraa and Quneitra. These strikes targeted military installations and bases previously held by the Assad regime, including outposts, tanks, radars, weapons depots, and artillery, which Israeli officials claim are to prevent them from falling into the hands of jihadist groups. The strikes have been noted for their intensity, indicating a significant military operation rather than routine attacks. Okay, so the Israeli military is trying to quickly destroy whatever's left of the Assad regime's military so it doesn't fall into the hands of these crazy, evil, sick, satanic jihadists who are now beheading and torturing and crucifying Christians. Okay, I saw this really sickening video yesterday of a Christian that was crucified and then he was shot in the head twice, okay, at point blank range. Very, very evil. And, you know, if Trump is listening to this video, which I don't think he is, but if somebody in the Trump administration is listening to this video, you need to send American special forces into Syria to take out these freaking animals, okay? We have the capability. We have the skilled people. Send them in there and let's wipe out these freaking scumbags once and for all. And the Polish government will send survival brochures to residents this year covering power outages lasting hours or days, emergency response to disasters, and war readiness. And this comes less than a week after the Polish Prime Minister announced that he's going to make mandatory military training for every adult male in Poland. Okay, that is absolutely huge. And the Polish President Andrzej Duda proposed an amendment to Poland's constitution mandating a minimum 4% of GDP spent on defense. And Elon Musk blamed Ukraine for the cyber attacks on Twitter yesterday. Yesterday, Twitter was down much of the day. There's still more outages today, and it looks like Elon Musk is having a really bad week. His stocks are tumbling. You can see Tesla share prices have been dropping like crazy, basically since the end of December, where they reached a maximum of like $480 a share. They're now down to $230 a share. So in the last 2 months, Tesla's stock price has dropped by 50%. That is absolutely massive, okay? And U.S. stocks today closed down about 1%. So the stock market is continuing to drop because of all these tariffs and recession fears. And Trump dismissed the effects of tariffs on the economy today. He said that it's not going to affect the economy and he's not worried about a recession. And Elon Musk said in an interview yesterday with Larry Kudlow that he is currently running his businesses with great difficulty as shares of his automotive firm Tesla suffered their worst drop in half a decade. Musk also said during an interview on Fox Business that he expected to remain in the Trump administration for another year. Okay, so he's planning to stay for another year, but if his businesses continue to fail, then he's obviously going to have to leave Doge and Trump's going to have to find someone else. Okay. Also, one of his rockets blew up last week, one of his Starship rockets that he was planning to use to send people to the moon, and he was testing it out. It blew up. His stock prices are crashing. His social media is being attacked, okay? Twitter is being attacked, so it's been a rough week for Elon Musk. And Trump officially revoked Biden's access to the president's daily brief, the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, said on Monday. And one of the InfoWars reporters, Jamie White, was gunned down outside of his home in Austin, Texas. Apparently he was shot like 10 times outside of his house. That is absolutely sad. And before I go, I just want to share this picture of Elon Musk. Some of you guys may have never seen this before. I know a lot of you guys love Elon Musk, but I want to just share something that is really disturbing. So he was at some kind of a Halloween party, and he chose this costume. He dressed up as the Devil's Champion, okay? And look at what's on his chest. Literally a Baphomet with an upside-down cross, okay? So I wanted to share this with you guys because a lot of you guys worship this man and love him, and he's not who you think he is, okay? I understand that this was just a Halloween costume, but I don't know anybody who claims to be a conservative or a Christian that dresses up with a costume that has a Baphomet on the chest and an upside-down cross, okay? So in my opinion, he was sending a message to the world that he's a Satanist. I mean, it's pretty clear to me when you're wearing a uniform that has a Baphomet and an upside-down cross, you're letting the world know that you're a Satan worshiper, okay? But you don't have to believe me. That's fine. I just wanted to share this with you. You can make up your own mind. But I will be back later on tonight in the live stream. I'm going to be monitoring the situation in Ukraine. It looks like Russia's preparing to launch a massive retaliation strike. So download my app so you can be notified when I go live, and I can post updates in the app periodically as things are going down. Also follow me on Telegram, Twitter, and Rumble. The links are in the description below this video. I post all my updates over there as well. And until the next time, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps. Prepare, practice, and persevere. And this update was sponsored by EMP Shield. Guys, EMP Shield has created a special discount just for you, the listeners of the NYPrepper channel. If you go to empshield.com and use the promo code NYPrepper, you can get 15% off your entire order. And why do you need an EMP Shield? Well, this is a special device to protect your vehicle, your RV, your solar generators, your radios from an electromagnetic pulse, which could be caused by a solar flare or potentially a rogue country like North Korea detonating an electromagnetic pulse weapon over the United States that's mounted onto a satellite. So protect your vehicles, protect your RV, protect your radios, protect your generators with an EMP shield. Use my promo code NYPrepper to get 15% off. Installation is super simple. This is a veteran-owned business, 100% American-made, and the EMP shields have been tested by the military, okay? And free shipping is included to the entire continental United States. And the link and the promo code are in the description below this video.